All right, looks like we are live. Once again, to thank everyone for watching this live and or afterwards, because I know there are still a fair number of people that watch this once it gets posted. What we learned last time is that we actually do get some feedback from LinkedIn now. I don't know if that is new or what is happening, but for those that participated mid-conversation last time, that was really awesome. So for those that engage now and want to comment and share information about what we are talking about, I will do my best to reply to those as they come in. But this week, I'm going to go ahead and let Eric kick it off. He and I had a brief conversation via comments on his last article, and I think there's some really good stuff that he brought up and that I disagreed with in a way. I think mostly just the way with what it was worded, but I think it kicked up a really interesting conversation that we wanted to share with you all today and talk a little bit deeper about.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me again this morning. It feels like this is becoming kind of a regular deal, which I've enjoyed a lot. I always really enjoy your perspective, expertise, and you challenging my thinking. So this morning, that'll be really good to get. So I've been running a series on strategic planning for the last several weeks. I think that as we go into 2021, it's more important than ever, even though it's harder. So trying to put some information out there for folks. Published was on challenges in implementation, 5 mistakes implementing a strategic plan and how to avoid them. And the last item on that list, point number 5 that I brought up, was aligning incentives to your plan. And I'll grant, I worded that pretty strongly. I have strong feelings on the importance of incentives in a workplace and the success of your team, organization, strategic plan. Brandon, you were eager to jump in and point out that incentives don't compensate for good leadership, which I agree with. So today, I think we're going to take some time, talk about incentives and leadership, how they can work together, but also how they can't substitute for each other, which I think is a great topic because I think a lot of teams, a lot of employers swing and miss on this one.
Yeah.
Sound right to you, Brandon?
Yeah, absolutely. I am on board with all of those things.
So I think, a lot of my, I've seen challenges with incentives throughout my career, but I think I worked with a previous employer, serves as a really great example. We had a great team of staff that I was in the fortunate position to manage, really awesome folks, working really hard. But the organization had not done a good job of aligning performance to any kind of incentives, pay, performance. And I should point out really quick up front that incentives aren't necessarily just about pay, and they're not just necessarily about promotions. There's lots of different kinds of incentives that you could offer as an employer that are valuable for your team. But I think for the purpose of today, we'll focus on those two: pay, promotion. So for me as a manager, I had a hard time motivating these folks. And it was really common for me to hear, hey, like, why should I get on board with these changes when it's not gonna benefit me personally, which drove me nuts, right? Like,
yeah,
it's like, come on, guys, get on board with the team here. Like these our organization better, and we're going to be able to buy better service to our customers. And at the same time, as I was frustrated, I knew where they were coming from, right? I mean, we were, change is hard. It's uncomfortable, and to get where you're going, I mean, I think that there does have to be a benefit for your team, as frustrating as that is. I hear managers say all the time, I wish my team was more self-motivated, but managers have to take ownership in that process and understand some of the macro level issues that cause it. But that's where you jumped in there, Brandon. So maybe if you want to kind of talk about a little bit about leadership and its importance in motivation outside of incentives.
Yeah, it lines up pretty interestingly because I wrote, or didn't write, but I made a video recently about one of the topics that I really, really keyed on from Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership. And he has an entire chapter called No Bad Teams, Only Bad Leaders. And in this chapter, he talks about, it gives an example from SEAL training where they do boat races, where the team has to carry a boat out to the water, get in it, ride out around a buoy and come back. And this one team kept losing and losing and losing. And the leader was complaining that these people suck. Like, my team sucks. I'm never going to win. These people are awful. And so they switched leaders. They put him with the team that was winning, and they put another leader in with his team. And magically, his team that was losing started winning, right? And so his point was essentially that teams don't necessarily underperform as a team as much as it is a manager that doesn't or a leader that doesn't inspire and doesn't help them get to where it is that they need to go. And that's kind of what I keyed in on with your number 5 paragraph, but also in the conversation afterwards, we really kind of mirrored that there's a connection between the two. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of ways to incentivize people, and people are different. Maybe they like praise in the group. Like if we're on a team and I say, hey, Eric did a great job, and I tell everyone in the group, whereas other people in the group would be mortified if I praise them in front of everyone, because that makes them nervous. That is not something that they necessarily attach to as a way to get excited about their work. And so there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I very much get where you're coming from when it comes to the incentive. And as you talked about it, it brought me back to some of my previous positions. And I have left companies for lack of monetary compensation, because they'll have weighted levels of people. Like you can be a 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4. And in that 1, like, here are your job duties. And the 2, here are your job duties. And the 3. And what happens a lot of times is people that are in a job duty as like a 2 end up doing a lot of work as a 3, but they don't get compensated as a 3. And so there's like a weird dichotomy on how people play that out. And so there's always a struggle between how you get those to happen together in unity.
Yeah, agreed. And so I really think where leadership and incentives come together, right, is ultimately, in my view, a good leader, exceptional leader who inspires and motivates, also, recognizes when the team or the individual on the team is succeeding, is helping you hit your goals, is helping you guys thrive, and offers some level of recognition for that, right? Some kind of incentive. And when you don't, I think that 2 things can happen, or both can happen. One is when you come back later and say, here's our next inspirational mission, they say, well, so what? I worked my butt off for you last time, right?
Yeah.
And nothing came out of that, right?
Yeah.
And 2 is exactly what you said, right? There are all kinds of great employers out there who are eager to pay a star performer what they're worth, right? And folks leave. That happens all the time. That's right, regular occurrence. I think we're all familiar with this. I think most of us have been in the position of leaving a job because we didn't feel like we were earning what we were worth, and someone else was willing to write us that check. So I think maybe to put that more elegantly, I think that a leader's job is to help his or her team members on their career journey, right?
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like.
Yep.
Right. So, when that 2 is performing at a 3 level, promote them to being a 3, right? So that they have that recognition and ownership, so that they get the pay that comes with that, and they've really earned.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's part of the leader's responsibility. And it sucks sometimes. One that's the one thing I guess I didn't really like hearing was the leader just said, oh, well, we already have X number of 3s. We can't give you that promotion. And my struggle there is I don't feel like that leader then is going to bat for me, right? Like it's been widely said that people don't leave companies, they leave managers, they leave leaders or whatever. And so when you look at that, I think had my leader come to me with a better example of saying, hey, here's what I've done. Like, I've gone and talked to this person, I've gone and talked to this person, I've gone and talked to HR. I cannot get this pushed through because of here are the hurdles that we are running into. But here are some alternative options that we can do to try and get you better compensation, or add in like more travel or more recognition, or get you on some special teams or something along those lines. I think that could bring that balance together. But the issue most of the times that I see is that leaders don't do that. There's like, well, I'm sorry, I can't get this for you right now. And you're stuck. And so it leaves people feeling like they're not respected and they're not wanted within the company, when there's all these other people who are getting paid, but maybe aren't working at that same level. And so there is that, like I said, that very intense dichotomy between the monetary and the leadership and that kind of emotional connection to your job and getting someone excited to come in every single day.
Yeah. So when, that person is a 2 and should be a 3, is doing the work of a 3, and a manager says, we've got too many 3s, right? We can't do this for you. That's pretty cowardly, actually. And I think what's being demonstrated there is you have X number of 3s, but actually you need one more, because this person who's a 2 is doing the 3 level work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're really stuck as a manager, and you can't make that move, right? There's other ways that you can serve that person. And maybe one is like helping them make an internal transfer to a different team where they can be a 3, and it sucks to lose them for your team. But at the same time, they're going to go, right? They're going to go be 3 for a different company.
Yeah.
So, I think, right, helping them on that career journey.
Yeah. And that's, you mentioned that earlier, and I wanted to key in on that. I think that is one big component that a lot of managers need to respect and know that is part of their role inherently. That if you have people on your team and they hit the ceiling in your team or your department or in your organization, you need to do what you can do to help them find something better if that's the type of person they are. There are some people who necessarily hit the ceiling and then they're fine. Like they're okay staying in a senior developer role. They never want to be an executive. They never want to move up. And you just have to recognize the difference between the two and treat each person appropriately. And I think if you're doing that and that person knows, there's a better chance they may be willing to stick around longer, minus some monetary compensation or some other things, because they feel that they are respected and you are doing what's best on their behalf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's very fair. So in my previous role, I referenced earlier, I put a lot of effort into tying pay back to performance, to recognize those team members who were going above and beyond. And I will say too that there's a lot of potentially ugly consequences that can come out of not doing this. I mean, if you're not really measuring performance and tying it to incentives, you can find a lot of inequalities and disparities happening. You could have established senior team members that aren't doing as much work as a junior team member, right, but getting paid more. And I've certainly seen situations where this leads to some income disparities based on things like gender that are pretty ugly and have no business being in our workplace. So this is something I think that's really critical for managers to take on and tackle, and it's a part of being a really good leader. But I'm hoping, Brandon, you have some thoughts or maybe an example for us on where incentives have been used as a substitute for leadership, and how perilous and difficult that can be.
Oh man, that's so absolutely, because I think every company that I have ever been a part of always has some sort of performance bonus structure, whatever it may be. One company that I was at in my past actually had a very, very good performance bonus structure, where it was, I think I was in my level, I was either 40 or 45% of my pay would come in a bonus at the end of the year. And the way they structured it is that you would have 5 goals, and you were meant to write those goals, but then find people to share those goals with. So that I would have one goal that would be around X, and you also needed to do X and work on X. And so you and I would share this goal. And then the hope was that by everyone having these goals that they would be shared, that you would work together as team. But what happened is it got very cutthroat, because 40 to 45% of your pay when you have a 6-figure salary is a lot of fucking money. Like that's a lot
of money.
And so when you're looking at a $40,000 to $50,000, $60,000 bonus at the end of the year, you're going to do everything that you can to try and get that bonus. And so for myself, I have learned kind of with my skill set and the way that I'm able to do things that I am better when I am working in a team. If I have 2 to 3 people that I work very closely with, or a group of leads that are managing other people, like I thrive in that environment. Whereas if I'm just doing work on my own, I'm not that good. Like I'm not as good as what I can when I have that team. But what I found out was after the first year is I tried to partner with different people on goals and say, hey, we could help each other out and get this. If it didn't directly align to them achieving that number, they did not want to work with me. And so it got a very, very cutthroat environment. So regardless of the leaders come down and saying, hey, everyone, you should all work together. Let's have a happy environment and do this and you'll hit your numbers, when that probably would be true in reality. But what it breeded was this very, very toxic environment in which people wanted more about that money than they cared about the person sitting next to them. And that I think is the struggle, because when you care about the people next to you, the money and the incentives and the bonus and stuff come if the structure is there, but it wasn't, because it was more about I need to hit my number because I want $60,000 next year.
Right. I mean, I want $60,000 next year.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, right, like toxic work environments play a big role in the health of your organization, whether or not your people stay. I've left jobs because I haven't enjoyed the work environment and gone to work somewhere else for less money. Right. So like, I get that. And I think probably most people who are listening right now or watching this video have been in that kind of situation where they've just taken themselves out of that situation to go work somewhere better. So I agree with you, right? It can't be a substitute for sure. And there's some dangers there. I've also worked, I worked somewhere where there were not bonuses, but still, and there were incentives for performance, just in terms of quality of your performance review, tying your performance review more closely to promotions, right? And so, I think you can reward your team, and you've also mentioned a number of ways without making it monetary and without creating a really cutthroat, miserable environment for people.
Yeah.
And that sounds terrible. I'm sorry you went through that.
It was a learning experience. So one of the things that we did that I really, really liked with my last team, and I forget if I talked about this on one of the other calls, I think I did, was the Appreciation Friday. Like just that little bit for the team to feel appreciated and appreciate one another was good. But also we would do things that where we would have team lunches or something like that, where we would do a lunch and learn, and I would pay out of our budget to have pizza or something brought in. And while that may seem expensive and extravagant to some managers or some teams, if you think about how much money you spend on licenses for whatever else, pizza is like a small amount that you are going to spend in part of your entire budget. And you're going to find maybe some people on the team like really, really enjoy a free lunch once a week or every other week or once a month or whatever it is. And so you can start to bring those kind of monetary incentives in different ways to keep them connected to the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Personally, and maybe I'm more cynical, I've always been skeptical of the pizza party. So I don't know, but I agree, right? I mean, the things you just have to connect with your team, find the ways, to resonate with them, to reward, to express gratitude. I think gratitude is just critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been funny, like some of the stuff you brought up. I don't know if you've read this book. I just picked it up. It's called 9 Lies About Work. And it's a really, really interesting book because they spend the first few chapters just completely destroying a lot of things that happen in the workplace that are just pointless in a sense. They're talking about 360 feedback and like manager reviews and like all of these different things. And it's just like, there's no way for this to actually work in the way that it happens in the environment. So that's a really interesting book that I'll probably start writing and maybe do some videos around some of the content
Yeah.
and what they say and how they talk about things that are actually happening, because I think a lot of people can relate to that, especially when it comes to performance reviews and bonuses and stuff like that. It's not necessarily a fair system.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me borrow it. I'd love to read it. I think I'd like to share one last thought. So I think if you're watching this and you're with a nonprofit that has a really fantastic mission, right? I think you might be thinking to yourself, my staff is passionate about what we do. And some of these financial incentives you're talking about just aren't necessary, right? And I think there's some truth to that. I think people want to work in a place where they are empowered to help others, where they feel good about their work. I think there's some data out there that shows, that's something millennials really want, which is good, which is wonderful. And that also doesn't mean that you can pay them nothing, right? I mean, as much as people want to connect with their work, they do also have families to take care of. When you pay your staff too far below market rate, to the benefit of your constituents as a nonprofit, as the people you're trying to help or take care of, you really are putting that burden of helping them on the backs of your people, right? And your people start to suffer more than the folks you're trying to help. So, I think this is just something that's just as important for nonprofits or more mission-based organizations. Something to definitely look at really critically, and make sure that you're staying competitive in regards to pay and these kinds of incentives, and that also you're paying really close attention to the health, welfare of your people, and getting them what they need to thrive in their own lives as much as you're taking care of your mission.
Yeah, absolutely. I would 100% agree with that, because there is that what is the hierarchy of needs, where it's like food, shelter, I forget, there's like 4 of them or whatever that you need. And if you can't take care of those, then you can't take care of other people, or you can't take care of what you need to do at your day job, because you're stressed to the max thinking about all these other things. And so, because I have been a part of that world as well. And so it's interesting to see people who want to help, and it works out great when you have someone that maybe doesn't need the job and you can pay them a lower salary, but that doesn't work for everyone. And you can't scale your support to the community based on, just that thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 100%. I think we're on the same page here. So Brandon, we've skipped right on past our 20-minute target, just like we did last week. It's a lot of fun talking, connecting. I really appreciate your thoughts on this topic: leadership versus incentives. How they play nice together, and how they can't be a substitute for each other. Appreciate your insights as always. I hope that there's been some good content here people find value in.
Yeah, same, man. I'm excited. I'm glad that we take the time to do these. And I did just learn a new feature. So before we quick. That apparently when people make comments now, I can share them on the screen. And
that's cool.
And that was kind of interesting. I accidentally did it earlier, and now I realize that I can do it. But I think we touched on this, that like there very much is a thin line between incentive to encourage, and it's definitely a manager's dilemma. I think that was what a lot of our back and forth was about today. So again, I think Milap, I'm probably butchering your name. I know you commented and stuff last week, so really appreciate you taking the time to stick around and chat with us again.
And I think that's a great comment, and I greatly appreciate that feedback. I think you're right on.
Awesome. All right, man. Thanks again. To kill the broadcast.